System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Thursday, July 16th. I'm Amin TMK, alongside Amoja Little Tanky Sumler. Amoja, hello, happy Thursday. How are you doing?
What's good, good people?
In the Inner City Left black with the Little Tanky water bottle right behind you. Of course, our branding. We're trying to do what we can just to keep the brand in the mix because that is the way.
Stay hydrated. That's what Mick Jenkins would want me to do. Stay hydrated.
Chicago's own.
Yes.
Yeah, let's you want to talk about some geopolitics today? Very interesting updates. Sad updates too, man, because we were I thought we was going to be at peacetime, but now we have restarted this war, at least the hot nature of the war, the memorandum, what have they been calling it?
Memorandum of Understanding.
Memorandum. MOU. Okay,
Yeah.
Silly things that, of course, obviously are.
It's like something you send to fucking HR.
Yeah.
Would you please check per the last MOU?
You know, you're trying to because you got to sue your job sometimes. That's just life in America. I don't know how other people are. Maybe you can put in the comments if you've ever had to take your job to court. Neither here nor there. But again, it is that kind of HR liberal BS discussion. The war is not changed because the reasons for the wars to take place has not changed. So let's talk a little bit about it because it's not a war in the ways that Iran fights a war, because that's not what America does. Let's talk about this. Shahid Bakeli Hospital, a children's cancer treatment center in Avaz, was evacuated last night after the U.S. attacked a nearby location. This barbaric attack, reminiscent of Israel's atrocities against healthcare facilities, caused several severe suffering and anxiety upon the hospitalized children and forced the emergency evacuation of 211 patients undergoing chemotherapy. This constitutes a cowardly war crime against the most innocent of human beings, children who are bravely fighting for their lives. Amoja, we have talked already about this bombing, the strike on the girls' school. Over 180 girls killed during that attack. And we almost joked about it with you the other day when I'm like, oh, here they go. They hit a children's school. Now they're going to hit a children's hospital. And not only I mentioned that 48 hours ago. And here we have it. Your thoughts?
I mean, there's an article on antiwar.com that's talking about how to this day Trump still won't even admit the United States' responsibility for the attack on the Manab school, And so this is right on line with it, right? I think one of the great intricacies that we have right now with the American military system is there is such a plausible deniability as to where the origins of any strike order comes from, right? Because there is wargaming that is happening with artificial intelligences right now, So if they're running the scenario and picking targets, you get to a place where, from a human rights point of view, there's not even a human you can point to anymore. Like, oh, this person gave the order. That's fascinating. Like from a contemporary point of view, that is fascinating. And this is how you end up with these places where Trump is, right? Where it's like, I don't even know where that order came from, And again, when Inner City Left is talking about, it's not just about the dangers of data centers. This is the use. These are what these AIs are being used for. You know what I'm saying? They are used to determine. It's so funny because Marvel made a whole movie about this and everyone understood that it was the bad thing to do. When the AI is oh, these people, are assumed that they have a 38.5% chance of raising to commit a crime. I think, wasn't it Tom Cruise made a movie about that too, right? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm muted. It's Tom Cruise's Minority Report. Everyone remembers it.
Minority Report.
Arresting you for crimes that you haven't yet committed. So-called crimes you haven't yet committed.
Right. And that's where we are now, where AIs are determining, essentially based on whatever curriculum they're being fed, what are likely targets. And so we're in this place now where first a children's school was hit. The same thing happened in Russia as soon as they started utilizing that automatic AI for the Ukrainian drones, right? They hit.
I just want to say too, and I hate to jump in here. It's also happening on U.S. soil. They're using AI to track people down. It's already been put several innocent people behind bars, and it's a huge problem now with law enforcement using AI to write these reports, man. So it's all throughout the tentacles, even domestically.
You have to resist the use of it at all times. As a leftist, you have to use your brain. I'm sorry, there are no shortcuts. You have to read a lot. You have to be in community. That's a whole nother rant. I'm not going to go there. But just understand AI is a shortcut, and it's doing the work for them. It's not doing the work for you, But that's where we are with these type of situations, and humans are dying. I remember this was one of my original protests with the Obama administration, because they were the ones that really went full scale with utilizing, the drone war to neutralize suspected terrorist targets. Remember, Petraeus came from the Bush administration, and he came over with Obama. And he went from being in CENTCOM to the director of the CIA, which was quite a jump, right? Like, that's not even like a lateral move. Like, you know what I'm saying? That was the job. And that's when that became a mainstream thing. You may famously remember Obama bragged in his book, I found out I was pretty good at killing, right? This is the offspring of those programs. This is where we are now, to the point whereas there may not even be humans making decisions about people, human beings that will live and die. And the result is children's schools get hit. And this has been happening in Gaza, I must say, for years. Once again, with the automated drone systems, and in Gaza, it's even worse. They have drones that literally mimic the cry of a wounded child, and people come out to investigate the child. This is real stuff. It's really incredibly macabre. And then when the people come out to investigate the sounds, the drones fire and kill them, right? Like, this is where we are with contemporary war. And this is why, again, it's not just a point of politics to be like, I can't vote for a Democrat that is for this. You know what I'm saying? And they're all for this. It's not a small, like, oh, it's not a purity test. It's a test of humanity.
You thought it would end there? Nope. This is from the Hormuz letter. The U.S. has struck a wheat storage silo in Hoveza County and a silo location in Dazat Azagdan. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing those, county. Southwestern Iran, an hour ago, per the deputy governor of Khuzestan province. This is the first U.S. strike on Iranian food supply infrastructure of the war. So the escalation now is going to food sources. And I just again, it goes back to this point, and you mentioned it really well when you talked about what's happening in Gaza, also what's happening in Lebanon, because now that's just an extension. Is they hit civilian targets. They target civilians. They target civilian infrastructure. And, we have all this discussion of, is it Israel pulling the United States in? Is it the United States and Israel together? Is it all you got to look at is both countries are invested in civilian targets. They hit civilian targets. Iran, they don't hit civilian targets. Russia, we don't see them hitting civilian targets. See them hitting gas stations. We even see Russia hitting gas stations in the night, where there's going to be minimal civilian casualties. But the United States firing, and they're going to say, "Oh, we didn't aim at the hospital," but you aimed at infrastructure right next to the hospital. So what are we going to hear next?
I mean,
Amoja, Yeah, go
To your
ahead.
point, though, right? More and more, even Iran is taking the gloves off in those things, right? Whereas what they try to go for overtly is military infrastructure. As that infrastructure has been degraded, and the Americans have chose to leave that infrastructure, the Iranians have pursued them where the American soldiers followed, which may or may not have been places that look like military infrastructure. Again, these are the reasons why soldiers should stay on base. You know what I'm saying? Mint Press ran a story a couple of hours ago about the Iranians having a direct missile strike on the Crown Plaza Hotel in Oman, right? And what the intelligence is showing is that this is where a great number of mercenaries and soldiers had been camped out, spies, all of that stuff, right? So, like, now you're having these tit for tats where essentially the point is the Iranian thinking is what's allowed Trump to stay in the game this long, even as he ignores the damage to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which I'll circle back to in just a second, right? Is the seemingly low amount of American casualties, right? Until there's a casualty amount that he's forced to be held account for, he's able to do enough because he's playing games with the markets. He's keeping the price of low artificially low. The Kushners are making a fortune. But at the end of the day, the oil must flow, right? But the thing that he cannot hide, even Ronald Reagan was not able to get past the loss of American life, right? That's the thing that resonates in America for right or wrong. And so what you're seeing now is it looks like a realignment of the Iranian strategy to move away from simply doing infrastructure damage and starting to do infrastructure and personnel. And we'll have to see where that goes because there, as the Americans struck, as you mentioned, the wheat silos, right? The Iranians retaliated in a major way. Iran hit with more than 30 missiles. You know what I'm saying? Like we're seeing Patriot batteries failing all across the Gulf. Kuwait hit in a major way. There's intel out there, open source intel, that's saying that they were able to hit a storage facility in Kuwait where a lot of the American HIMARS missiles were, which were being fired in Iran, right? And so you're destroying their ability to even be offensive before that happens. Once again, right, we're seeing a strategy where they're easing this strategic restraint more and more. This era of patient restraint, strategic patience, right? They're showing more and more that was the philosophy of the last Ayatollah. And now there's a new Ayatollah, and we're learning what his responses will be, right? So that in and of itself shows a failure of intel because we were not able to accurately predict what their responses would even be. The assumption was, once again, probably run through an AI simulation, there was a 95.2% probability that if we got him with a decapitation strike and kill his child and kill his father and wound his wife, that the new Ayatollah would just immediately capitulate and surrender, just like they did in Venezuela. However, the calculations were wrong, whoever did them.
Yeah, calculations, man. It seems to be a lot of miscalculations going on. We talked about this last broadcast and Trump being the guardian of the strait, the golden guardian who will protect the strait from the mean, cold-hearted, cold-blooded Iranians. Strait of Hormuz observed to be almost empty today. Only two vessels were visible transiting the strait. A Panamax-sized tanker heading outbound through Iran, and a very large tanker heading inbound, which is currently stationary. So you hear J.D. Vance on Joe Rogan talking about, we're getting it back to normal, or, it was normal at 19, I think it was like 19 vessels or something he said, even though it's up to hundreds of vessels that can enter the strait. Strait of Hormuz is closed. You mentioned the conversation surrounding oil markets, Brent crude, these things that maybe not everyone understands exactly how they work. But now with the strait having so little movement, especially with ships that are not, um, kind of allowed by Iran to enter the strait, what does that do for sort of the global economy and the American economy?
Well, this is the one thing that everybody admits, right? Yeah, the president admits this, JD Vance admits this, and it is that the commercial vessels themselves don't feel confident to come through, right? So, like the American Navy at one time was offering escorts through the strait. But as you're looking at that, if we can we bring up the image again? I just want to show some of the detail. If you'll look, right, the top of that waterway is Iran. The big island that you see to the left, Iran. Most of those big islands you see floating in the water, Iran. All of that is part of the country of Iran. And if you look at the very bottom, right, where it says like Warsaw Witness, right? What you see there is Oman. From the top to the bottom of this, we're talking about a waterway that is less than 30 miles. There's so much. It's just like when we talked about in the last episode about why a landing operation to land ground troops would be so dangerous, which, by the way, there is a lot of rumors in the city circulating that the president will be giving a speech today where he will be announcing major combat operations, where he will be announcing full war, which may include ground troops, right? The danger with that is what you see with this waterway. It's not a very large piece of area. So many weapons in contemporary warfare can be used to contest such a landing. It's not a protected landing. You don't really have air supremacy, no matter what they're saying, right? We're seeing that with all of the commanders that are being fired upon, right, as they try to escort these ships. The ships don't feel confident going through, no matter what JD Vance is saying. When the highest of the MOU, they had 19 ships go through, but the normal traffic for this is 120 vessels. Most of which are oil-bearing vessels or natural gas or commodities. Everything coming out of the Gulf is absolutely critical, and the fact that it is not going every day, this doesn't go, continues to stress the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The American government right now, their reserves are less. Let me look at this stat. This blew my mind. I was looking at this earlier. Okay. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve right now is the lowest number it's been since 1983. It's meant to hold 714 million barrels in reserve. Right now, it only has 172 million barrels. And that sounds like a huge number until you start to look at the amount of petroleum that Americans need every day. Every day. That number is not magic. Once it's gone, it's gone. Okay? And then any type of further disruption will be no longer like, oh, gasoline went high. You're talking about cataclysmic type economic failures. Cascading. I do not mean to oversell this. Quite literally, world economies will fail as strategic petroleum reserves continue to deplete. And the United States has one of the largest ones in the world. If theirs is close to depleted, you have to assume other governments are even in worse positions.
Yeah. And I think, again, this is, like you said, cascading is going to continue as every day the strait doesn't contain dozens and dozens of American ships or, ships that are going to be going all the way out to the world on a normal basis, the way that it was before this war started, which, again, it seems like every talking point from JD Vance to Donald Trump to Marco Rubio is like, well, we need to get the strait open. Well, it was open before you started this war. And I've actually heard less and less rhetoric surrounding, the Iran creating a nuclear capability, a nuclear, strike capability. And that's sort of kind of gone off to the wayside. And there's been more discussion about the Strait and the financial aspects of that. And, now it's like, oh, they're not negotiating the way that we want them to negotiate. So we're going to hit them hard because they're not doing the things that we want. I mean, that's the rhetoric that I've been hearing more and more out of the Trump administration. And we're not even kind of focused on this. And and what's interesting too, because I kind of always feel like, the government is always making their own little play, and the Trump administration, sometimes does look bad for business. You heard Condoleezza Rice come out here and say, well, back in, when we went to war with Iraq, we went about it the right way. And we got, this, we had way more bureaucracy and people had to vote and do those things. And you kind of how bad it's gotten now here with Donald Trump, where those things don't even take place anymore. But, again, it's just this is what America does. They destabilize your country. They destroy it if they can. They create these ridiculous, rules-based order, which is what we say. You heard Marco Rubio coming out here against the UN, against the ICC, and the United States, again, just looking more like a rogue state, like an empire acting unilaterally. And, what can the Democrats say and do other than vote to continue to fund Israel? I mean, that's all they do. Anyway, any other things you wanted to mention about this? I think it's just more of the same, which is unfortunate. And I think there's going to be a lot of dangerous things to come in the future.
One of the things I want to circle back to this, right? Because this is something that people aren't talking about a lot at all. And that is the uranium potential nuclear program. Right. I don't consider it a weaponized program. I've never seen evidence that states that there is a military utilization or a race for weaponized use of nuclear material. They have the capability. The capability is not the same thing as the intent. And it's important that we discuss those things, right? But I think the reason why those conversations have fallen to the wayside, once again, Dmitry Medvedev said it when he came to the funeral. The world was made to realize Iran doesn't need a nuclear weapon to bring down their adversary. They don't need to hit the United States. They don't need to physically damage the continental United States at all. They have to choke off the flow. They have the ability to do that. And this is where they are with just the Straits of Hormuz. We still have a whole nother choke point that they know that they have in reserve, that they haven't needed to utilize at all. And that is bringing the Ansar Allah movement fully online. So this is why it's been interesting that the Saudis have been kind of poking that bear.
Yeah, because the Yemen's all keyed up now because, Saudi's kind of gone back on this war with them, with the Yemenis.
Right. So that's just a whole nother point of pressure. Dmitry Medvedev said this straight up. The Iranians don't need a nuclear weapon. They can close the Straits of Hormuz. They can close the, I can never pronounce it, but the Ansar Allah, the Bab
Ben al-Mandab, Bab al-Mandab.
There it is, right? So that is two different places where they can apply pressure to the global economy, not just the Americans, but the West in general. And it's a lot less destructive than utilizing a nuclear weapon, right? Which they have continued to say, right? Even in the force of this, we have to say, this chosen aggression against this country, they continue to maintain that a nuclear weapon goes against their religious beliefs and that they don't have an interest in doing that. But that doesn't mean that they're not capable and not willing to defend themselves. And that's what we're seeing just with the way that they've exercised their straits.
Yeah, and also this is not the same Khomeini. This is the son. And when you martyr someone's family and you create that, well, I think there's going to be a little bit different mindset for the citizenry. And there definitely is. There's definitely a lot of people, just like in Russia, who want their militaries to do more, to hit harder, because I think in general, everyone knows this is a fight to the end. And that's why these MOUs or whatever it is, IOUs and ceasefires and hot ceasefires and cold ceasefires and whatever it may be, that the wars are not ending. They are not, they oscillate from low intensity to, hitting civilian infrastructure. And obviously they can get more intense. So that's just going to have to be something that is a part of our normal, which is unfortunate. Again, we want to just remind everyone we're anti-war. This is an anti-war show. Or broadcast, whatever you want to call it. And it's under, it would be my opinion, and I assume yours as well, Tanky, that the United States should not intervene anywhere on the planet.
I'm here for self-defense. I'll defend the hell out of my right to live and my right to carry on the life the way that I want to live. But to the moment you begin to aggress your values on other people, you're no longer the liberator, you're the oppressor. And it's just that simple. War is the ugliest thing that humans do, and there's almost never a reason to do it.
Yeah, facts. Of course, we're going to be covering this, and I assume there's going to be more that's going to unveil itself as we go. I don't know what the Trump administration is thinking. I don't know what Donald Trump is thinking, and I don't know how this is going to go forward. But if there is a ground force attack, obviously that's something that we're gonna get on. And of course, follow us on Inner City Left on Instagram if you are on Instagram for updates all the time. About to do an update right now, actually, as soon as we finish with the broadcast, because of course the work never stops. Let's give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We're available everywhere you find podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Cast, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Having more and more difficulty with people seeing our videos. I used to always watch YouTube videos and they'd be like, oh, and make sure to hit that bell because you might not see my videos. And I used to be like, come on, man, I'm going to find your videos, blah, blah, blah. But it's true. They just don't want to see you to see it. And that's frustrating.
Yeah. And shout out to all the people with the stars in the comments. Let's keep that going, man. If you made it to the end, man, throw up a star because you the real motherfucking star.
Yeah, I love it. I love our little sayings. You're the star. I remember when we used to always go to the poetry venues, and there's always like a you say this and I say this, and there's always a good fun. It's good community building. Yeah, stars in the comments. Let you know what it is if you made it this far. Like, subscribe. Fables, Foibles, Other American Sins right behind me. Get that. Get it in your library. Read it. Good poetry. MFA, world-class talent. World-class in multiple disciplines. Lil Tanky everywhere you find music. TMK everywhere you find music. Patreon.com/InnerCityLeft. Guys, we are building a community there. I've been more active. If you've been on our Patreon, you see I've been a little bit more active. Want to give you guys some behind the scenes stuff and also, just our vibes and kind of what we get into, and more and more kind of using it like a Discord, and we got chats going on in there. So come be a part of it. We have free subscriptions. It doesn't cost you anything, but if you want to throw something our way, it does help to our sustainability. You get that. Everyone knows that. Tanky, what did I miss? What are your thoughts?
It is what it is. Once again, everybody, keep an eye on, we didn't even have a chance to touch on it, but keep an eye on the Ukrainian situation. It is highly unstable right now. There is inner palace intrigue. Apparently, Zelensky tried to remove a defense minister that was highly loved by the people because of a little bit of jealousy, the rumors are, because of the success he's had in his drone campaigns. He's tried to replace this dude with the dude who was essentially the head of police, the guy that's running all around Ukraine, making sure that any man at a grocery store is getting swooped up, grabbed up, black bagged, and sent to the front. So the people are pushing back against that. You're not going to see it on the news, but there have been huge protests all across the country for days on end, just tired of the corruption, tired of Zelensky, wanting this motherfucker to have an election so he can get voted out because nobody wants him there except the people that are keeping him there. And those people are not Ukrainians.
And we do not care about the excuse of they're fighting a war and they can't do elections. It's not true. It's patently untrue.
There were elections in the Civil War. There were elections in World War II.
There were elections in Russia, for God's sakes. While they're
you know what I'm saying?
Fighting, and you're going to lose. And that's why you don't want to do it. And when you you hold the water for, for imperialists when you say stuff like this, when you get on our page and you say things like, oh, it's unfair to have Zelensky do a election when he's fighting a war. And it's like, that's just ridiculous, because at any time there can be peace, and the peace negotiations are there. They're not they're not insane. The negotiations that again, we don't have to get involved in it. We'll discuss it more on in, but
every liberal out there with a little Ukrainian flag in their little Twitter bio, they call Maduro a dictator, should just smack the fuck out yourself, because you're a clown.
Yeah, just put the clown makeup on right now as you're talking about Putin is a dictator, and he's gonna, and put the little red nose on when you say hashtag close the skies, or Zelensky time person of the year. Anyway, for Amoja. Oh no, go ahead.
You just brought that up, and it came out that the National Endowment for Democracy paid Time $12 million to put Zelensky on the cover.
Jeez.
Your tax dollars at work, baby.
Oh, man. Dang it. Remember when Kamala, she paid $1 million to promote on the Sphere in Las Vegas. Oh, and then Joe Biden, he's got his book coming out now. My Promise to America or something like that. He couldn't wait to go on a book tour. He's like,
I wonder who wrote that.
Well, Joe Biden, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Auto-pen hot than a bitch, man.
Man, he wrote it with, he wrote it on parchment paper, with ink and a quill. Anyway, the grift is everywhere, bro. It's all a grift. No one believes in anything. And it's all about capital and capitalism. And that's unfortunate. Anyway, okay. For Mojo Little Tanky Stumbler, I'm Amin TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.